Okay, so for this next step, we're going to trim the models down to a fair size that we can handle and start fabricating a custom tray. Ideally, we want to have about 12 to 15 millimeters of thickness at the thinnest point, which is around the pallet here, the deepest part of the pallet, and on the lower, somewhere inside the lingual extension. Okay. You can certainly measure it, but over time you get to develop a sense of the depth, and you can do it all at once. The number one, I typically like to start with a maxillary cast, and the first thing I'm going to trim is the base of the back portion of the model. And what you want to do, and I'm not sure if it shows very well on camera right now, but you want to outline the mid-palatal suture. So the initial trimming of this cast will be the back portion of the model, and I want to trim this perpendicular to that line. So I tend to draw that line on here to help me guide, to make sure I'm rotated properly as I'm trimming the model. And I'll do the same thing here. I'll find the lingual frenum or a labial frenum here. I'll mark it here. And you can certainly take a midpoint between the retromolar pads. You can measure it for one. Or what I did in this case, I eyeballed it. And I think that's the midpoint between the two retromolar pads. And I'll use that as my guide to trim the back portion of this model. So I'll start with the upper cast first. We'll go over to the model trimmer. Now when you get to the model trimmer, quite often these tables, they're adjustable and people move them over time. So what you want to make sure is to undo the knob if you can, unless it's wedged in there with a whole bunch of stone, and make sure that this table is perpendicular or 90 degrees to the disc here. Okay? You can certainly use anything square to align it, or you could use your eyes. This hasn't moved in a while, so I know it's pretty much square, so I know whatever I'm trimming here is 90 degrees to this. Okay? For this portion, you don't want to use any gloves. You don't want to get your gloves getting trapped inside the model trimmer. There is a protective shield here that protects you from a lot of the splash, and of course you want to wear your mask and as well as your goggles. So back to here, mask somewhere here. So I'm going to turn on the model trimmer, and the model trimmer itself has an automatic feed as far as the water is concerned. So when you turn it on back here with this toggle switch, the water dispenses automatically. Okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is trim the back portion of the model. Okay? And when I hold the model, I mean, you're going to find your own style how to hold it, but I tend to pivot myself back here. So my left hand goes around the back of the model trimmer, and then I also kind of create a bit of a tripod effect here. Do not put your fingers on top of it. You're going to trim out your fingers. So keep your fingers away from the disc. And at this point, I'm concentrating on this line being perpendicular to the disc. There's a little line here on the table, which you can use to help you guide that line in, to make sure you're going at the right angle. Now, I'm not going to go all the way to where I want to finish. I'm going to leave it there. Okay? I've created a nice flat portion of the model in the back, and if I sit this one upright and you look at it here, it looks like that mid-palatal suture is vertical right now. Okay? Now the next thing, before I finish any further in the back, I want to make sure that the crest of the residual ridge is parallel to the table. And it doesn't look like it is right now. I think I need to be like so. So that means I need to trim the back portion of the model a little more aggressively than the front portion of the model. So when I put this back on the model trimmer, I can't do that this way. very difficult for me to push this out and hold it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to tilt it this way. So I'm creating that back portion of the model. Now I've created a new angle. Okay? So look at the new angle. So it's a bit of an angle there, but once I rotate it over and hold it in this fashion now that flat surface allows me to sit that there. The line is vertical, and now I have a new angle created, so when I push this model in, the back portion of the model now touches before the front portion, which is exactly what I wanted. So I'm going to concentrate on pushing on the same consistency, not to let go like this. So I'm going to concentrate on pushing with the heels of the model now. Nice and even. Now I'm not going to go all the way through. I've created enough of a trim there. So if I bring this over now and sit it flat, now we can see the residual ridge, or the crest of the residual ridge, a little more parallel to the table. Also, we want to be parallel left to right as well. Okay? As close as possible. So practice this now. Now, I might have gone a little bit too far in the back, so now I'm going to rotate it this way a little bit. So I'm going to create yet a newer angle, just like that. And this is a difficult part. Try to be a little consistent with your pressure to maintain that angle. So we got a new flat bottom. So when I set this down now, if you look at it from the profile, that looks pretty parallel. In terms of interior, posterior, and left to right, I think I'm a little bit lower on the right side versus the left side. Okay? So I'm going to put a little more pressure here. I like this, but I don't like this in terms of the left to right. So I need to press this side a little more. Interesting why this happens. It'll happen to you because remember, as the disc is turning, there's more revolutions on the outside. The disc is faster on the outside than it is on the inside. Therefore, if you put the same amount of pressure, you're going to end up trimming this side earlier. So I'm going to concentrate on putting a little more pressure on my right hand. Just like that. Let's see that now. Better. And of course, we want to check the interior posterior. So that looks good. I'm happy with this, that the crest of the ridge now is parallel to the table. And now I can finish off a little bit in the back because the back doesn't match now.